सलवात जी। अल्लाहुम्मा सल्ली अला मुहम्मद व आलि मुहम्मद। बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम। अन जाबिर इब्न अब्दिल्लाह अल-अंसारी अन्नहु क़ाल अन फ़ातिमा अज़-ज़हरा अलैहिस्सलाम बिन्त रसूलिल्लाह सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि व आलिहि क़ाल समिअतु फ़ातिमत अन्नहा क़ालत दख़ल अलय्य अबी रसूलुल्लाह फ़ी बाज़िल अय्याम फ़क़ाल अस्सलामु अलैकि या फ़ातिमतु फ़क़ुल्तु अलैका अस्सलाम क़ाल इन्नी अजिदु फ़ी बदनी ज़ुअफ़न फ़क़ुल्तु लहु उईज़ुका बिल्लाहि या अबताहु मिनज़्ज़ुअफ़ फ़क़ाल या फ़ातिमतु ईतीनी बिल्किसाइल जमानी फ़ग़त्तीनी बिह फ़अतैतुहु बिल्किसाइल जमानी फ़ग़त्तैतुहु बिह वसिरतु अंज़ुरु इलैहि वइज़ा वजहुहु यतलअलअु कअन्नहुल बद्रु फ़ी लैलति तमामिही व कमालिही। अल्लाहुम्मा सल्लि अला मुहम्मद। फमा कानत इल्ला साअतन वइज़ा बिवलदिय अल-हसन क़द अक़बल वक़ाल अस्सलामु अलैकि या उम्मह फ़क़ुल्तु अलैका अस्सलाम या क़ुर्रत ऐनी व समरत फ़ुआदी फ़क़ाल या उम्मह इन्नी अशम्मु इन्दकि राइहतन तय्यबतन कअन्नहा राइहतु जद्दि रसूलिल्लाह सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि व आलिहि फ़क़ुल्तु नअम इन्न जद्दक तहत अल-किसा फ़अक़बल अल-हसन नहव अल-किसा वक़ाल अस्सलामु अलैका या जद्दाहु या रसूलल्लाह अतअज़नु ली अन अदख़ुल मअक तहत अल-किसा फ़क़ाल वअलैका अस्सलाम या वलदी व या साहिब हौज़ी क़द अज़िनतु लक फ़दख़ल मअहु तहत अल-किसा। अल्लाहुम्मा सल्लि अला मुहम्मद व आलि मुहम्मद। फमा कानत इल्ला साअतन वइज़ा बिवलदिय अल-हुसैन क़द अक़बल वक़ाल अस्सलामु अलैकि या उम्मह फ़क़ुल्तु अलैका अस्सलाम या वलदी व या क़ुर्रत ऐनी व समरत फ़ुआदी फ़क़ाल ली या उम्मह इन्नी अशम्मु इन्दकि राइहतन तय्यबतन कअन्नहा राइहतु जद्दि रसूलिल्लाह सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि व आलिहि फ़क़ुल्तु नअम इन्न जद्दक वख़ाक तहत अल-किसा फ़दना अल-हुसैन नहव अल-किसा वक़ाल अस्सलामु अलैका या जद्दाहु अस्सलामु अलैका या मन इख्तारहु अल्लाह अतअज़नु ली अन अकून मअकुमा तहत अल-किसा फ़क़ाल वअलैका अस्सलाम या वलदी व या शाफ़िअ उम्मती क़द अज़िनतु लक फ़दख़ल मअहुमा तहत अल-किसा। अल्लाहुम्मा सल्लि अला मुहम्मद व आलि मुहम्मद। फ़अक़बल इंद ज़ालिक अबुल हसन अली इब्नु अबी तालिब वक़ाल अस्सलामु अलैकि या बिन्त रसूलिल्लाह फ़क़ुल्तु अलैका अस्सलाम या अबल हसन व या अमीर अल-मुअमिनीन फ़क़ाल या फ़ातिमतु इन्नी अशम्मु इन्दकि राइहतन तय्यबतन कअन्नहा राइहतु अख़ी वब्नि अम्मी रसूलिल्लाहि सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि व आलिहि फ़क़ुल्तु नअम हा हुवा मअ वलदैका तहत अल-किसा फ़अक़बल अलिय्युन नहव अल-किसा वक़ाल अस्सलामु अलैका या रसूलल्लाह अतअज़नु ली अन अकून मअकुम तहत अल-किसा क़ाल लहु वअलैका अस्सलाम या अख़ी व या वसिय्यी व ख़लीफ़ती व साहिब लिवाई क़द अज़िनतु लक फ़दख़ल अलिय्युन तहत अल-किसा। अल्लाहुम्मा सल्लि अला मुहम्मद व आलि मुहम्मद। सुम्मा अतैतु नहव अल-किसा वक़ुल्तु अस्सलामु अलैका या अबताहु या रसूलल्लाह अतअज़नु ली अन अकून मअकुम तहत अल-किसा क़ाल वअलैकि अस्सलाम या बिन्ती व या बिज़अती क़द अज़िनतु लक फ़दख़ल्तु तहत अल-किसा फ़लम्मा इक्तमलना जमीअन तहत अल-किसा أخذ أبي رسول الله بطرف الكساء وأومأ بيده الجمنى إلى السماء وقال اللهم إن هؤلاء أهل بيتي وخاصتي وحامتي، لحمهم لحمي ودمهم دمي، يؤلمني ما يؤلمهم ويحزنني ما يحزنهم. أنا حرب لمن حاربهم وسلم لمن سالمهم وعدو لمن أعداهم ومحب لمن أحبهم. إنهم مني وأنا منهم، فاجعل صلواتك وبركاتك ورحمتك وغفرانك ورضوانك علي وعليهم، وأذهب عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. فقال الله عز وجل يا ملائكتي ويا سكان السماوات إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدحية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيئة ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا في محبات هؤلاء الخمسة الذين هم تحت الكساء. فقال الأمين جبرائيل يا رب ومن تحت الكساء؟ فقال عز وجل هم أهل بيت النبوة ومعدن الرسالة، هم فاطمة وأبوها وبعلها وبنوها. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. فقال جبرائيل يا رب أتأذن لي أن أهبط إلى الأرض لأكون معهم سادسا؟ فقال الله نعم قد أذنت لك. فهبط الأمين جبرائيل وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله العلي الأعلى، يقرئك السلام ويخصك بتحية والإكرام ويقول لك وعزتي وجلالي إني ما خلقت السماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدحية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيئة ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلك يسري إلا لأجلكم ومحبتكم، وقد أذن لي أن أدخل معكم، فهل تأذن لي يا رسول الله؟ فقال رسول الله وعليك السلام يا أمين وحي الله إنه نعم قد أذنت لك. فدخل جبرائيل معنا تحت الكساء. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. فقال لأبي إن الله قد أوحى إليكم يقول إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس وأهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. اللهم صل على محمد وآله. فقال علي لأبي يا رسول الله أخبرني ما لجلوسنا هذا تحت الكساء من الفضل عند الله. فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وآله والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض، وفيه جميع من شيعتنا ومحبينا إلا ونزلت عليهم الرحمة وحفت بهم الملائكة واستغفرت لهم إلى أن يتفرقوا. فقال علي إذن والله فزنا وفاز شيعتنا ورب الكعبة. فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وآله ثانيا يا علي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض، وفيه جميع من شيعتنا ومحبينا، وفيهم مهموم إلا وفرج الله همه ولا مغموم إلا وكشف الله غمه ولا طالب حاجة إلا وقضى الله حاجته فقال علي إذا والله فزنا وسعدنا وكذلك شيعتنا فازوا وسعدوا في الدنيا والآخرة ورب الكعبة اللهم صل على محمد.
Salawat. Assalamu alaikum. Today is the fourth day of Muharram. During these days, we remember the sacrifice of Imam Hussein and his family in Karbala. On the 4th of Muharram, many brave companions and family members had joined Imam Hussein. Even though they knew the journey would be difficult, they stayed loyal because they wanted to support truth and justice. One important lesson we learn from Imam Hussein is to always stand for what is right. We should be honest, even when something is difficult. We should try to do the right thing. The children in Karbala were also very patient and brave. They trusted Allah and stayed close to their family. We can learn from them by being patient, praying regularly, and having good manners. Let us pray that Allah helps us follow the teachings of Imam Hussein and makes us truthful, caring, and courageous Muslims.
By now, the situation in Karbala was becoming even more difficult. The camp of Imam Hussein alayhi salam was surrounded and they were facing hunger and thirst. But still, Imam Hussein alayhi salam and his companions did not give up the truth. They remained strong and trusted Allah completely. The people who opposed them were following the rule of Yazid ibn Muawiyah, who wanted people to obey injustice commands. But Imam Hussein alayhi salam showed us that Muslims should never accept zulm or oppressions, even in hard times. From this day, we learn important lessons. Always speak the truth no matter what. Be patient in difficulties. Stand up against injustice. Trust Allah in every situation. Be strong in your faithful character. As the days passed in Karbala, the situation became even more difficult. The army of injustice led by force of Yazid increased pressure on Imam Hussein alayhi salam and his family, but Imam Hussein alayhi salam never agreed to oppression. He stood firmly for truth and justice. Even in these hard moments, Imam Hussein alayhi salam and his followers showed Allah great courage, patience, and strong faith in Allah. They were thirsty and tired, but their hearts stayed strong. From this day, we learn important lessons. Always stand against injustice. Be brave even when things are difficult. Never give up the truth. Trust Allah in every situation. Be kind and helpful to others.
Nare Haidari! Nare Haidari! Nare Haidari! Nare Haidari! Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir-Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina as-siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladina an'amta alayhim. Ghayril maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. Sadaqallahu al-aliyyul azim. Nare Haidari. Nare Salawat.
اکبر تمہیں معلوم ہے کیا مانگ رہے ہو، تم باپ سے مرنے کی رضا مانگ رہے ہو۔ اکبر تمہیں معلوم ہے کیا مانگ رہے ہو، تم باپ سے مرنے کی رضا مانگ رہے ہو۔ اس عالم غربت میں تمہیں جان دوں کیسے، اس دشت مصیبت میں تمہیں جان دوں کیسے، اس وقت قیامت میں تمہیں جان دوں کیسے۔ اے لال جو تم اذن وگا مانگ رہے ہو، تم باپ سے مرنے کی رضا مانگ رہے ہو۔ اکبر تمہیں معلوم ہے کیا مانگ رہے ہو، تم باپ سے مرنے کی رضا مانگ رہے ہو۔ کیا گزر گئی اس باپ کے دل پر نہیں سوچا، تم نے یہ میری جا علی اکبر نہیں سوچا۔ مر جاؤں گا میں تجھ سے بچھڑ کر نہیں سوچا، تم مجھ سے ضعیفی کا سا مانگ رہے ہو، تم باپ سے مرنے کی رضا مانگ رہے ہو۔ اکبر تمہیں معلوم ہے کیا مانگ رہے ہو، تم باپ سے مرنے کی رضا مانگ رہے ہو۔ دنیا سے گیا جس گھری محبوب خدا کا، نانا کی زیارت کو طرف تھا نواسا۔ اے لاد تجھے اس لیے خالق سے تھا مانگا، مقبول ہوئی میری دعا مانگ رہے ہو، تم باپ سے مرنے کی رضا مانگ رہے ہو۔ اکبر تمہیں معلوم ہے کیا مانگ رہے ہو، تم باپ سے مرنے کی رضا مانگ رہے ہو۔ ایک روز تجھے آنکھیں مانگا تھا پھوپھی نے، 18 برس نازوں سے پالا تھا پھوپھی نے، بیٹوں سے بھی زیادہ تمہیں چاہا تھا پھوپھی نے۔ احسان جو زینب نے کیا مانگ رہے ہو، تم باپ سے مرنے کی رضا مانگ رہے ہو۔ اکبر تمہیں معلوم ہے کیا مانگ رہے ہو، تم باپ سے مرنے کی رضا مانگ رہے ہو۔ جواب الگ پر بابا مجھے معلوم ہے کیا مانگ رہا ہوں، ایک باپ سے مرنے کی رضا مانگ رہا ہوں۔ بابا مجھے اماں نے بھی کچھ درس دیا ہے، ادب وفا سے مجھے آگاہ کیا ہے، پہلے میں مروں آپ سے وعدہ یہ لیا ہے، بس اس لیے مرنے کی رضا مانگ رہا ہوں، ایک باپ سے مرنے کی رضا مانگ رہا ہوں۔ بابا مجھے اول دل زار پتہ ہے سخت بہت منزل دشوار پتہ ہے، اور دین کا مشکل میں سردار پتہ ہے، یوں آپ سے مرنے کی رضا مانگ رہا ہوں، ایک باپ سے مرنے کی رضا مانگ رہا ہوں۔ بابا مجھے معلوم ہے کیا مانگ رہا ہوں، ایک باپ سے مرنے کی رضا مانگ رہا ہوں۔ صلوات۔
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali. Yes, bismillah.
The brave hero of Karbala, Hazrat Abbas, alayhim salam. Hazrat Abbas, alayhim salam, is the brave and loving brother of Imam Hussain, alayhim salam. He is known as Ghazi, which means a brave warrior who never gave up. He went to fetch water for the thirsty little children of Karbala. He is famous for his great loyalty, kindness, and courage. We love Hazrat Abbas alayhi salam as always remember his sacrifice. Nare Hadari Yali. Nare Salawak. Now buy me a toy right now.
خوشنود امام زمانہ بلند ترین صلوات. بار دیگر نعرہ صلوات. کہتے تھے شہیدی کے، کہتے تھے شہیدی کے، میرے عباس کہاں ہو، عباس کہاں ہو، عباس کہاں ہو. کہتے تھے شہیدی کے، میرے عباس کہاں ہو، عباس کہاں ہو، عباس کہاں ہو. تنہا ہوں کھڑا دشتے بلا میں برادر، دیکھو ذرا کہ، دیکھو ذرا کہ، پالا تھا جنہیں نازوں سے سوتے ہیں کہاں وہ، عباس کہاں ہو، عباس کہاں ہو. اور دکھتا نہیں اب آنکھوں سے ہر سوئے اندھیرا، دوں رکتا ہے میرا، دوں رکتا ہے میرا. دیتا ہے صدائیں علی اکبر میرا مجھ کو، عباس کہاں ہو، عباس کہاں ہو. اور سینے میں جوالال کے برچھی کی انی ہے، تھراتی زمیں ہے، تھراتی زمیں ہے. الجھا ہوا برچھی میں نہ اکبر کا جگر ہو، عباس کہاں ہو، عباس کہاں ہو. اور سینے سے سینہ کھینچ کے اکبر کے سرہانے اس دشت بلا میں، اس دشت بلا میں تکتا ہوں بسد یاد سے دم توڑتے اس کو، عباس کہاں ہو، عباس کہاں ہو. اور اگل اور ہاتھوں پہ اگلتا ہے لہو اصغر بے شیر، گردن پہ لگا تیر، گردن پہ لگا تیر. کیا کہہ کے تسلی دوں میں در پہ کھڑی ماں کو، عباس کہاں ہو، عباس کہاں ہو. اور چلتی تھی سیادیاں، خون بکھرا تھا ہر سو، جب کھول کے گئے سو، جب کھول کے گئے سو. ایک لاش بریدہ پہ یہ ماں کہتی تھی رو رو، عباس کہاں ہو، عباس کہاں ہو. کہتے تھے شہیدی کے میرے عباس کہاں ہو، عباس کہاں ہو، عباس کہاں ہو. بر محمد وآل محمد صلوات.
برائے خوشنودی امام زمانہ بلند تر صلوات. ایک بار اور مجھے گود میں لے لو بابا، ایک بار اور مجھے گود میں لے لو بابا. واہ حسینہ کا ہوا شور حرم میں برپا، ہو کے رخصت جو چلے گھر سے شہ کرب و بلا. کہہ کے یہ دوڑی سکینہ کے ٹھہر جاؤ ذرا، ایک بار اور مجھے گود میں لے لو بابا. شین بچی کا جو یہ حال پریشان دیکھا، رو کے فرمایا یہ کیا حال میری ماں لقا. جوڑ کر ننے سے ہاتھوں کو سکینہ نے کہا، ایک بار اور مجھے گود میں لے لو بابا. سوچتی ہوں کہ تماچے کوئی مارے نہ میرے، گوشوارے کوئی کانوں سے اتارے نہ میرے. وہم آتی ہے میرے دل میں نہ جانے کیا کیا. ایک بار اور مجھے گود میں لے لو بابا. بابا سینے سے سکینہ کو لگاتے جاؤ. اب کہاں ہوگی ملاقات بتاتے جاؤ. تم کو اکبر کی قسم غنچہ دہن کا صدقہ، ایک بار اور مجھے گود میں لے لو بابا. صلوات.
ایک اور جاگتے ہوئے صلوات پڑھ دیا گا محمد. میرے ہر خواب کی تعبیر لکھنا آ گیا ہے. میرے ہر خواب کی تعبیر لکھنا آ گیا ہے. میرے بچے کو اب شبیر لکھنا آ گیا ہے. میرے ہر خواب کی تعبیر لکھنا آ گیا ہے. اٹھا کر ہاتھ اب بچہ میرا کرتا ہے ماتم، اسے خود ہاتھ سے تقدیر لکھنا آ گیا ہے. میرے ہر خواب کی تعبیر لکھنا آ گیا ہے. درود محمد وعلیہ.
دکھوں کی شام جو آئی حسین یاد آئے دکھوں کی شام جو آئی حسین یاد آئے یہ کہہ رہی ہے خدائی حسین یاد آئے دکھوں کی شام جو آئی حسین یاد آئے یہ دن دکھانا تھا ہم کو دکھا دیا رب نے روانہ ہونے سے پہلے کہا یہ زینب نے بھلا کے دشت میں بھائی حسین یاد آئے دکھوں کی شام جو آئی حسین یاد آئے نبی کا دین بچانے چلے تھے یہ گھر سے ہوا بتائے انہی با وفاؤں کے سر سے ردا ہے کس نے اڑائی حسین یاد آئے کیا ہے گریا سبھی نے ایک نام پیاسوں نے سجائی مجلس و ماتم تمام پیاسوں نے کہیں سبیل جو پائی حسین یاد آئے دکھوں کی شام جو آئی حسین یاد آئے دوبارہ ہوگی ملاقات یہ بھی آس نہیں ہے پاس نہیں ہے چچا بھی پاس نہیں تو کس کی دوں میں دہائی حسین یاد آئے دکھوں کی شام جو آئی حسین یاد آئے. اللہم صل.
پر محمد و آل محمد صلوات.
اللہم
حبیب ابن مظاہر جو کر بلا پہنچا حبیب ابن مظاہر جو کر بلا پہنچا صدا ہواؤں نے دی لشکر خدا پہنچا صدا ہواؤں نے دی لشکر خدا پہنچا حسین کہتے تھے میرا بھروسہ جیت گیا لکھا تھا خط جس سے زینب وہ بھائی آ پہنچا لکھا تھا خط جسے زینب وہ بھائی آ پہنچا حبیب ابن مظاہر. درود بر محمد و آل محمد. آج کے مجلس کے اسپانسر کے مرحومین کے ساتھ اپنے مرحومین کو شامل کر کے ایک سورہ فاتحہ. جب رن میں حبیب نے مظاہر گئے مارے جب رن میں حبیب نے مظاہر گئے مارے برچھی لگی گھوڑے سے گرے زوف کے مارے برچھی لگی گھوڑے سے گرے زوف کے مارے یہ دیکھ کے یاور شاہ والا کو پکارے جنت کو حبیب ابن مظاہر بھی سدھارے خون آپ کے بچپن کے مصاحب کا ہوا دم بھرتا تھا جو شے کا وہ دم توڑ رہا ہے. دم بھرتا تھا شے کا جو وہ دم توڑ رہا ہے. سر پیٹ کے حضرت نے کیا چاک گریباں. سیدانیاں تھیں در پہ کہا ان سے یہ اس کیوں فاطمہ کی بیٹیوں کچھ کرتی ہو احسان. احسان یہی ہے کہ عزا کا کرو سامان. فدیہ میرا بے کس ہے اور آوارہ وطن ہے. یا اس کی نہ بیٹی ہے نہ ماں ہے نہ بہن ہے. یا اس کی نہ بیٹی ہے نہ ماں ہے نہ بہن ہے. عباس نے یہ سن کے کیا چاک گریباں اور گیسوئے مشکی کیے اکبر نے پریشان. یہ قافلہ ماتم کا گیا لے کے وہ سلطان. پر لاش پہ کب آئے کہ جب ہوٹوں پہ تھی جان. اشک آنکھوں سے جاری ہوئے اور آج گئے سے غم خاروں سے یوں لپٹے پدر جیسے پسر سے. غم خاروں سے یوں لپٹے پدر جیسے پسر سے. ملتے تھے دہان سے دہان اور کہتے تھے بولو اے میرے ویسے قرنی آنکھیں تو کھولو. دم توڑنا پر ہم سے بغل گیر تو ہو لو. رخصت کرو باہیں گلے میں ڈال کے رو لو. آخر ہمیں صدمہ دیا دوری کے علام سے. بچپن میں اسی واسطے تم کھیلے تھے ہم سے. بچپن میں اسی واسطے تم کھیلے تھے ہم سے. ہائے ہائے میرا غم خار حبیب ابن مزار. سید کا طرفدار حبیب ابن مزار. بچپن کا میرا یار حبیب ابن مزار. بے کس کا مددگار حبیب ابن مزار. واللہ یہ ایک شیر تھا شیران خدا سے. آفت میں بچاتا تھا ہمیں اہل جفا سے. آفت میں بچاتا تھا ہمیں اہل جفا سے. جبرن میں حبیب ابن درود بر محمد و آل محمد.
بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم. السلام علیکم مومنین. First, point of apology to the congregation today. We don't have the AC working, and I apologize for that. We're trying to work on it, and hopefully it will be ready by tomorrow. We're hoping we'll be able to have a cool area again for you. Again, apologies for that, but this was something beyond our control. With that, this is the 4th of Muharram today, and Maulana's 5th lecture of the series. He's talking about ittihad among Muslims and ittihad in general in our communities. And he's been obviously giving us fantastic lectures. They're available on YouTube as well if you want to follow along or see them later on as well. A couple of more points for housekeeping. I'm sorry about the AC, as I said earlier, but when you come in, please, especially if you're coming in later, please move away from the doorways so that people coming later can have access to the main hall. Bar Muhammad wa ale Muhammad salawat. इसके साथ ही मैं मौलाना से गुजारिश करूँगा कि आइए और आज की तकरीर से खिताब फरमाइए. बर मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सलावत.
رحم الله من قرأ سورة الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Please recite another Surah Fatiha for the following marhumin: Sayyid Jamshed Raza, Sayyid Ansar Rizvi, and Naseem Rizvi. Surah Fatiha. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي قصرت عن رؤيته أبصار الناظرين وعجزت عن نعته أوهام الباسفين. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين أبي القاسم محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. أما بعد فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى وقوله الحق وهو أصدق القائلين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. واعتصموا بحبل الله جميعا ولا تفرقوا واذكروا نعمة الله عليكم إذ كنتم أعداء فألف بين قلوبكم فأصبحتم بنعمته إخوانا. صدق الله العلي العظيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. As mentioned, this is the 5th Majlis in the series of Majalis. Under this ayat of Surah Al-Imran, which I've been reciting for you on every night, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addresses the mu'mineen as understood from ayat number 102. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ittaqullaha haqqa tuqatihi wa la tamutunna illa wa antum muslimun wa'tasimu bihablillahi jami'a. That all those who are sahiban iman fear Allah the way He deserves to be feared, and do not depart this world unless you are in the state of submission to Him, and hold on to the rope of Allah, all of you in congregation. وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا, and do not separate and do not cause discord and disunity. Remember the favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala unto you at a time when you were enemies of one another. فَأَصْبَحْتُمْ بِنِعْمَتِهِ إِخْوَانًا, and you became brothers and sisters in iman with the ni'mat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One of the misadiq of this ayat, as we know, Quran, ayat of Quran have a mistaq. There's a reason, or a context of revelation, the reason why it was revealed. Tafsir of that ayah, which speaks about a particular incident for which this ayat was revealed. Of course, our understanding, my adults understand, my children may not have this comprehension, so I'm mentioning it for them. that there are two types of nuzul of Quran, right? One nuzul of Quran is instantaneous. The other nuzul of Quran is gradual. The instantaneous Quran, the nuzul of Quran, was onto the heart of Prophet of Islam, Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam, on the night of Qadr. And the gradual nuzul of Quran was for over the period of 23 years. With these two different types of nuzul that are mentioned distinctively in Quran, of course, this is where we understand the qawaid of Lughatul Arabiyyah. In Arabic, you have two words that are used in Quran for its nuzul. One word that is used is anzala. Second word that is used is nazzala. So in Surah Qadr, you read, Inna anzalnahu fi laylatil qadr. Anzala or anzalna. Of course, the conjugation of the verb. It says, anzalna, we revealed. This anzala, yunzilu, inzal, from Bab If'al refers to instantaneous revelation of Quran. This verb itself refers to something which happens all at once. And therefore, that's why this is mentioned in Surah Qadr. While on the other occasion, when Allah speaks about the gradual nuzul of Quran, He uses the verb nazzala. So for example, we read this ayat yesterday as well, that inna nahnu nazzalna dhikra, that indeed we sent this zikr. Zikr is again another name for this Quran. Nazzala yunazzilu tanzilan. So where the word tanzil, the root word, masdar of this word is tanzil, which itself refers to the gradual revelation of Quran. So there's no doubt between the two types of revelations. One came all at once, and one came over the period of 23 years. This tells you that Prophet of Islam had the prior knowledge of every ayat before it was descended upon him. And that is the reason Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at times have said to the prophets, La ta'ajal, la tuharrak lisanaka. O Prophet, do not move your tongue. Don't speak before the ayat of Quran is completely revealed unto you. For example, many of you already know many ayat of Quran, many chapters of Quran. So, Surah Yasin is something I'm sure we don't know the whole surah, but we have, to an extent, the ayat of Surah Yasin memorized. If I was to read a portion of the ayat of Surah Yasin, you might be able to complete it. If I was to say Yasin, you'll say, well, Quran al-Hakim. Say, Innaka laminal mursaleen, you will say, ala siratim mustaqim. Or other famous ayat, famous in a sense that important ayats, such as ayat al-Tir. If I was to say, Innama yuridullahu liyudhiba ankum ar-ritsa, you'll be able to complete the rest of the ayat. Why? Because this is something which you have often heard. And because you have heard it often, what happens that you are able to complete this ayat. When you start reading this ayat, as I'm reciting it, as Maulana is reading it from the mimbar, and you know this ayat, what do you like to do? You like to read it alongside. Not because you're showing off that you know this ayat, but because you are familiar with it. So Rasulullah, when this ayat was being revealed onto him, Jibreel was bringing this ayat to him. Because Rasulullah had prior knowledge to it, he would start reciting it. Ayat of Quran said, in the revelation, La tuharriq lisanaka, or Rasul, do not move your tongue. Qabla, before the ayat is completely revealed onto you. That means Rasulullah knows, he has the ilm of the ayat of Quran prior to its revelation. And that is the reason he's able to place the ayat of Quran, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala dictated to him to go ahead and place. You know, the ayat were being revealed left and right. Some surahs were revealed partially in Makkah, some were revealed partially in Medina. To be able to put them together in the form of one surah, that was the doing of our Prophet. With that understanding, every ayat has sha'n-e-nuzul, the reason and the context of revelation. Sha'n-e-nuzul, and sometimes the tafsir, and sometimes the ta'wil. Both are mentioned for the ayat of Quran. So famously, the last 4 ayat of Surah Fajr, Ya ayyatuhan nafsul mutma'inna, irji'i ila rabbiki radiyatan mardiyya, فَادْخُلِي فِي عِبَادِي وَادْخُلِي جَنَّتِي. Then Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. This surah is known as Suratul Hussein, right? And so these 4 ayat are implementation, and the ta'wil of these ayat is on Sayyid al-Shuhada. The surah begins with Iqasam wal Fajr wal Layalin Ashir wal Shaf'i wal Watr. And then towards the end it talks about Nafse Mutmain. So the ta'wil of these ayat is Imam Hussein. Of course, the tafsir is something else. Ta'wil could be until the day of judgment. That's the beauty of this book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why we recited that hadith yesterday from the Ahl Sunnah sources, Durr Manthur. In that tafsir, Suyuti mentions it clearly that Hablullah il-Mamdud is Quran. Quran is that habl of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the rope of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is extended, mamdud. One end of it over there and one end over here. So, what is the tafsir of this ayat that we've been reciting from the very beginning? You say, Maulana, this is the 5th day, and now you're talking about the tafsir of the ayat. No, we understood the ayat, word by word, we explained it. Now we look at the context of revelation. One of the contexts of revelation for this ayat is the group known as Aus and Khazraj. Their enmity, for 120 years, they've been fighting with one another. They were neck to neck, and they would not spare a moment to go ahead and not bring about a confrontation. Only when Islam came and Prophet of Islam came, he was able to unite them. He was able to bring them together. He was able to remove their differences and cause this ittihad and unity amongst them. And therefore this ayat became known as ayat of unity. Every time there's a seminar on unity, this ayat is heard. Although there are other ayat of Quran that also refer to this. But this became that, paramount, that main ayat which is usually recited when it comes to unity. So there's 2 groups, Aus and Khazraj. They would look for the smallest of the opportunities to go to war with one another. To the extent, Al-Hakum al-Takathur is actually revealed for them as well. What would they do? They will find opportunity to fight one another. And when they would fight one another, there would be no stopping. Sometimes they will argue, the fight would begin, that we have more followers than you do. Back then, it didn't matter how much money you had. It mattered how many people you had in your community. The bigger your community, the stronger you were considered. The more numbers in your family, in your community, the stronger the strength would be there. And therefore, Aus and Khazraj would go to the extent by bragging and boasting that we have a bigger khandan. We have a bigger tribe than you do. And therefore, they would fight. These ayat are good and important for us to understand those deep-rooted fallacies, deep-rooted vices and evils that sometimes creep into our hearts and our minds. You would be followers of Ahlul Bayt, yet you will find somehow these differences will divide you. That exists, that happens amongst the Shia and Haidar Karrar. All of them followers of the same Maula, yet they have, disputes. They have differences. It's okay to have differences. Nothing wrong with that. In fact, for a constructive argument, for a society to grow, arguments and dispute is needed. Well, the moment dispute comes, you try to resolve it. If there was a fault in it, you'll try to make it better and grow from that. So when someone points out your fallacy, someone points out a deficiency in you, that is only a good thing. Because if that deficiency is true, what do you try to do? Try to make up. You try to get better at it. Another angle, many physicians sitting in front of me, apology for giving this example, that having pain and not having pain. Who over here would say having pain is better than not having pain. Does anyone over here want to have pain tonight? So no. Who would want that? All of us would want the pain to stay away from us. Pain is a bad thing. Ask those who are suffering from back pain, for example. Arthritis, for example. So pain, go away. But for some, you'd argue pain is actually a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because if it wasn't for this pain, you and I would not go after the cure. Only with this pain do we go after the cure. If the pain wasn't there, and this thing was eating us from inside, how devastating it would be. So the moment we find out there's pain somewhere, that's when we go start doing the ilaj for that thing. So then pain becomes what? It becomes a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when you have differences, when you have disputes, when you have these difficulties arise, the best way is to correct them and move forward with it. And that is a healthy sign of a growth in a healthy society. These two groups were not doing that. And unfortunately, we today are repeating the same mistakes. They would take pride in what we do. Our this is better. Our family is bigger. Our children are this. Our house is like all of these things, materialistic, of course, they would take pride in. Where these are the things that Quran says, Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. The honor, it does not lie in how many kids you have. Honor does not lie in your lineage. Honor does not lie in where you come from, the color of your skin. Honor lies if you are taqwa and praise God. If you are pious, that's where honor lies. That's how Quran at least understands honor. Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. Of course, prior to this ayat, Inna akramakum is the ayat of Surah Hujurat where it says, Khalaqnakum, we created you shu'uban. Right? We created you in different tribes. Lata'arafu, so that you may be able to understand one another. Allah created you from different tribes. And of course, different color of skin. So you may be able to recognize one another. And then says, Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. So with that understanding, Aus and Khazraj were doing what? They were bragging about petty things. And they would fight, shed blood over that. And to the extent, when one day they counted the number of people, came out to be equal. They said, let's go ahead and count our dead. So they went to the graveyard. They started counting their deceased. We have more dead than you do. Meaning, our tribe is larger than yours. Look at the mindset. Where, to what extent they have fallen. That's why the ayat of Quran came down. Talking about that alhaakumut takathur. This rivalry has defeated you. Alhaakum, this rivalry has destroyed you. Hatta zurtumul maqabir. Until you started visiting what? The qubur, the graveyards. Unfortunately, some people who wanted to take the ayat of Quran out of context, they would say, look, Quran is saying visiting graveyards is not permissible. Zurtumul maqabir is a bid'at, is haram. Don't do it, Quran is telling you. How do you take these ayat from out of context? And then of course, people don't do research. They'll believe in it. Then they'll back it up with another ayat of Quran. Is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says it very clearly in Quran, La taqum ala qabrihi wa la tusalli alayhim man mata abadan. Don't stand on the qabr of someone who has died and don't pray for them. Ayat of Quran. You put this ayat and you take this ayat, Alhaakum at-takasur hatta zurtumul maqabir. Both are negating what? Visiting the graveyard, going to the qubur, or praying for them, or forget the second marhala, seeking tawassul from them. They have issues with going there, let alone seeking any sort of intercession from them. So right away, this shubha is emerged and created. Now, of course, this is what happens when you have half the knowledge. When you take half of Quran and you leave the other half away, this is kind of like saying, La taqrabu salat. Someone asks, why don't you pray? Quran is telling me, La taqrabu salah, do not pray. Don't approach the prayer. Baba, why not? Read the entire thing. La taqrabu salat wa antum sukara. Don't approach the prayer while you are in the state of intoxication. Meaning what? When you're intoxicated, don't go near the salat. So well, that means Allah is giving me the license to get intoxicated, right? Kind of like the billboards that you read on the road. Don't drink and drive. It's not saying don't drink, period. So no, drink all you want to. But don't combine these two things. That's a devastating combination. So does that mean Quran is giving us the permission and license to drink? Na'udhu billah. La taqrabu salat wa antum sukara. First, take the full ayat. Don't approach the prayer while you are intoxicated. You're in the state of intoxication. Of course, this has further explanation, whether this intoxication refers to alcohol, whether this intoxication refers to drugs. You know, many of the drugs that are becoming legalized in every state, all those, as long as they are intoxicating you, are haram. Forbidden. People think that alcohol is haram only, but drugs that are now legal in many states, if we buy them, that's okay for us too. No. The moment your aql is za'il, that thing is forbidden and haram. Whether it is alcohol or whether it be something. So therefore, this ayat is not giving you the license to drink. Rather, this also tells you the gradual nuzul of Quran. See all the ayat, there's a maqsad behind it. We mentioned the two types of nuzul of Quran, right? Instantaneous and gradual. This ayat is actually part of a gradual revelation of Quran. Because when all of these newcomers to Islam, all these who became Muslim, they embraced the religion, they were already accustomed to drinking. Now if Quran comes down and Rasulullah tells them from the very first day, now that you're Muslim, now that you have embraced Islam, you cannot drink anymore. This would turn them off. They will say, well, I'm not embracing this religion. You have to gradually bring them on board. You know, this gradual bringing them on board reminded me of a personal incident. Way back in the days when Maulana was a lot younger and I was even more younger, when we were in Qom. Of course, Maulana is way senior to me as far as ilm is concerned. And we used to bother him when we used to, you know, he was married at that time. We were still single and we would go to his house, you know, for food and all that stuff. And remember those good old days when we were in Qom. I remember when we first got there and in our madrasa, our mudir at that time was Agha Hashimiyan. Maulana might have remembered him. And of course, the head of our seminary was Agha Arafi. You may have heard of his name as well. He was head of our madaris. And of course, you know, he became head of all of the Hawzat al-Ilmiya. And of course, he was also named interim Rahbar in between after the Shahadat of Rahbar Inqilab. With that said, in those years, there were about 35 Chinese exchange students that had come to our madrasa. Chinese. And it's not like when you say, well, you bring kids from America, they're Desi kids from America. No, these were actual Chinese. And they were Muslims. They had already studied Arabic. And they were brought in. And, you know, so they began their studies there. Now, of course, they understood Arabic. It was our habit that every Thursday night, we would recite Ziyarat Ashura. And of course, you know, in Ziyarat Ashura, there are these la'an at the end. Allahumma la'an Aba Sufyana wa Muawiyata wa Yazid ibn Muawiyah wa Al Marwan wa Al Ziyad ila Yawm al-Qiyamah. And then you go into Sajda right there. So, all of these la'an are there. Nothing wrong with that. We believe this is our Musallam Aqidah, to send la'an on these individuals. And now these are still Sunni Chinese students. They were not one or two, there were 35 of them. They raised a complaint to the Mudir Agha Hashmiyan. Why are you cursing, you know, these people? And we don't like that. And we don't want you to be reciting the ziyarat. Right away, Agha Hashmiyan, he said, okay, we won't recite the ziyarat anymore. And students like me, who are just, tifle maktab, I'm still tifle maktab. But at that time, we had this outrage. How dare? This is the ziyarat that we have. And we believe in the ziyarat. And am I in the wrong place that our mudir is saying no more ziyarat Ashura? He stopped us. He was the mudir of the madrasa. He could do whatever he wants to. He stopped. This practice stopped. We were not allowed to read ziyarat Ashura anymore. And then time passed. Within 6 months, these 35 Chinese students were reciting ziyarat Ashura with us. Why? They understood. They realized. They studied ulum Ahl Bayt. They understood the atrocities of these individuals. They studied the tariq, unbiased tariq. And they realized that these people were really deserving of lanat. And they understood it. They embraced it and they said, yes, we're going to stand alongside with you and we'll recite. Look at this ras, nigah of our mudir. That he knew that today if he said to these 35 students, no, I'm not going to stop reciting this ziyarat. Because all of the other students will mind if we stop this ziyarat. His hikmat was, no, let them stop. Let them understand this. And that hikmat amali came into play while everyone became together. This unity became about, and everybody was on the same page. Allahumma la'an Aba Sufyan, wa la'an Aba Sufyan, wa Muawiyah, wa Yazid ibn Muawiyah. Everybody was sending lanat upon these individuals together, collectively. Salawat bhi Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Yeah. So, sometimes this phenomenon, we're back to this ayat. La taqrabu salat wa antum sukara. You have to read the entire ayat. Otherwise, if you leave it out, you will not understand it. This is actually highlighting what gradual revelation of Quran. That in the beginning, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if He has said, alcohol is haram, forbidden. Now that you have become Muslim, you cannot drink anymore. And if you do so, you're exiting the realm of Islam. These people will be turned off. They'll go away and say, well, we weren't Muslim a day ago, and so that's okay. We'll be back to being non-Muslims. No, Quran gradually trained them. This is the tarbiyat of Quran. La taqrabu salat. Do not approach the prayer. Wa antum suqara. You are in the state of intoxication. So they said, if we drink, if we become intoxicated, we cannot perform the salat. This led them to remorse, and they stopped this habit of drinking gradually and slowly. Once they were able to let go of this habit, then the ayat of Quran came down, إِنَّمَا الْخَمْرُ وَالْمَيْسَرُ وَالْأَزْلَامُ وَالْأَنْسَابُ رِجْسٌ مِّنْ عَمَلِ الشَّيْطَانِ فَاشْتَنِبُوهُ. Then came down with the complete form of negation and hurmat of this act. Innama al-khamr. You all aware of what innama is. And if anyone understand, Shia understand the hisar of innama. He said, innama al-khamr. Indeed, khamr, maisar, azlam, ansab, all of them are what? Rijsun. They are filth. Min amal al-shaytan. They are actions of shaitan. Fajtanibuhu. Fajtanib is the verb, fe'l amr, which is giving you nahi over here. Right? In Quran, when you have fe'l amr, in positive or negative, that gives you hurmat of something or wujub of something. Right here it says, fashtanibuhu. Then this ayat negated the concept of intoxication is absolutely forbidden. So that also proves the fact what? Quran was not revealed altogether. Rather, the revelation of Quran was gradual for the period of 23 years. Now go back to that ayat, where it says, La taqum ala qabrihi abadan. وَلَا تُصَلِّ عَلَيْهِمْ. Do not stand on their graves ever, and do not pray for them. Surah Hujurat. Why? Man mata abadan. Whoever has died, don't stand on their graves, and do not pray for them. So Maulana, what happened to, the thawab of visitation? What happened to thawab of the ziyarat? What happened to going to the graves of our deceased and praying for them? And doing all of that stuff that we do. according to the ayat of Quran. Now you can't go against the ayat of Quran, can you? So no, this ayat of Quran is being recited to you incomplete. Read the entire ayat. It said, لا تقم على قبره ولا تصلي عليهم من مات أبدا إنهم كفروا. Because these are kuffar. Don't stand on the qabr of kuffar. Do not pray for them ever. But if you were to replace the word kuffar with mu'minun, and those who are sahiban iman, the ayat would be reversed. No, stand on their qubur, pray for them, and if they are of sahib maqam, go ahead and ask for tawassul and shafaat from them as well. Salawat biji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So here we understand taking ayat out of context could be detrimental. But this is where we need to upgrade ourselves, understand if we don't have this Quran and we don't have the proper understanding of this Quran. So today what I wanted to do with this short muqaddamah that I presented in front of you, short in a sense that I took only 35 minutes of your time, is to understand what this Quran is. What are we missing when it comes to this Quran? So Hablullah, according to that riwayat which I had mentioned for you from Sa'id ibn Mansur, from Durr Mansur, the riwayat said, وَأَعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ means what? Hablullahil Quran. Hablullah is what? This Quran Majid. Quran Majid is that rope of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Of course, we'll talk about the other end of the rope, which is the Ahlul Bayt, alayhimus salatu wassalam. Salawat biji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. As far as this Quran is concerned, there's so much emphasis that is placed by Masumin. Imam, in his wasiyat, Amir al-Mu'mineen, Lamma daraba Ibn Muljam, when Imam was struck by Ibn Muljam, la'anatullah, Imam gave a wasiyat. In that wasiyat, of course, Imam begins by giving them advice. But one of the first advices that Imam gives his children after being, struck by the sword of Ibn Muljam, and Imam is, taking his last breaths. This is the precious moments where you want to go ahead and impart knowledge which you think is the best. Imam ﷺ says what? He says, in regards to this Quran, Wallah fil Quran. Beware, fear Allah in respect to this Quran. La yasbiqukum bil amali bihi ghayrukum. Don't let ghayr act on this Quran before you do. Don't let others take precedent over you when it comes to this Quran. Don't let others use this Quran before you have fully understood and utilized this Quran. I mentioned a few things regarding this Quran the other day, so I won't repeat those things, that there's so much. When we look at this Quran, sometimes we consider this Quran to be, a book which has limitations. No, this book does not have limitations. If you were to read the ayat of Quran, Allah Himself is saying regarding this Quran, He says, قَدْ جَاءَ يَا أَيُّهَا النَّاسِ قَدْ جَاءَتْكُمْ مَوْعِظَةٌ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ وَشِفَاءٌ لِمَا فِي الصُّدُورِ وَهُدًى وَرَحْمَةٌ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. 4 things are mentioned. That indeed a mau'izah, advice, admonition has come to you from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What is in it? Shifa'un lima fi sudur. It contains cure for those deadly diseases that you are carrying in your sudur, in your chests. What are the diseases that we are carrying in our chests? We carry jealousy in our hearts. We carry envy in our hearts. We have all of these diseases, for there's no cure. You can take a pill if physically there's an ailment. But when it comes to these ailments, you can't just take a pill and make it go away. These things have to be repelled gradually by sometime the recitation of Quran. Quran recitation makes these ugly diseases of one's souls to be removed. Quran is saying this. He said, وَهُدًى وَرَحْمَةٌ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. It is huda, it is hidayat, and it is rahmat and mercy. So a question arises. Does that mean Quran can also cure our physical ailments, or is it only for the spiritual ailments? Yes, it is definitely for spiritual ailments. But don't discount Quran to be able to cure your physical ailments as well. Again, the physicians are sitting in front of me. You understand the reason you give this dawa, this medication, because this medication was trial and put on trial, and until it was suitable for certain illnesses and was able to cure it, you started, prescribing it to the people. There's this correlation that exists through which this medicine is used and created to go ahead and get rid of, for example, your headache, your backache, your, other heart-related issues and other things that they are there for us. For kidney, for lungs, for heart, all these areas, different medications. But are you canceling out the opportunity to say that this medication alone, independently, has cure in it for these things? Or there is a taqat and quwwat and power behind it, which is giving the power to this medication for it to go ahead and cure that ailment. That pure taqat, that quwwat, that is none other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And therefore, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala placed that cure in that medication, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala placed cure in this Quran as well. Hence it says, lima fis sudur, although it is cure for your spiritual ailments, there's no discounting, saying that Quran cannot be cure for your physical ailments as well. One last thing regarding this Quran. Of course, we talk about the houses of Ahlul Bayt. This house of Amir al-Mu'mineen, the house of Janab al-Sayyida, is the house of Ahlul Bayt al-Nubuwwah. Right? There's a difference between Ahlul Bayt al-Nabi and Ahlul Bayt al-Nubuwwah. Ahlul Bayt al-Nabi includes even the other family members. But Ahlul Bayt al-Nubuwwah is the house upon which Rasulullah used to stand, and he used to say, Assalamu alayka ya Ahlul Bayt al-Nubuwwah. This house is not an ordinary house. This was the house when all the doors were closed, opening to masjid. Only the door of this house remained open. This is also the house in which the descent of angels happened. Someone might say, when you go to the Fazail of Al-Bayt, you don't see any limits. And you go to the extent saying that angels used to come down to the house of Janab Sayyida. What is the proof of that? Proof of that is, forget the house of Janab Sayyida. You can do certain acts by which angels can come to your house as well. The fact is that you have to do that first. In riwayat of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam al-Muttaqeen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam, in the Kitab al-Kafi, Imam narrates by saying, Innal bayt al-lazi yudhkaru Allahu azza wa jalla fihe wa yuqra'u al-Quran, house in which Quran is recited and Allah is remembered. Imam said there are three effects of it. Takthuru barakatuh. The barakat and the blessings of this house increase. You want barakat in your house? Dhikr Khuda wa recitation of Quran. The second effect, Imam says, Tahduruhul malaika. The angels gain access to this house. They come to this house. The third effect, Tahjuruhu shayateen. The shayateen stay away, far away from this house. Now, of course, the house in which Quran is recited. Seventh Imam, Imam Musa al-Kazim alayhi salatu wasalam, was walking by a house and he heard the sound of music. You have music in your house and you expect angels to come to your house? And you want shayateen to stay away from this house? No, it'll be the reverse effect. You got music playing in your house. Imam went past his house, he heard the sound of music. He knocked on the door. This is Amr bil Ma'ruf, Nahy anil Munkar. Imam knocked on the door. Jariya, a female servant, opened the door. Imam said to her, is your, Malik, is he hur or is he abd? Is he free or is he a slave? She said, he's a free man. It's a matter of pride. He's not a slave. Imam said, I wish he was a slave. Imam walked away. She came inside. The Malik said, what took you so long? He said, this man was there, a strange man was there. He knocked on the door and he said, is your owner, is your Malik a free man or is he a slave? I told him, no, he's a free man. And then that man said, I wish he was a slave. He walked away. This person, his name was Bishr. He understood who it was. He left the house barefoot. That's why he's called Bishr Hafi, barefoot. He left the house barefoot, running after Imam. And he went to Imam and he asked for the forgiveness, did tawbah. He said, I wish, Imam, you said, I wish I am and I become the servant of Allah. Regarding this man, Bishr Hafi, I was reading, that he became, when he came back home, he destroyed all of the alat of, mawsiqi. Destroyed everything that he had. Got rid of, different tools of mawsiqi that were prevalent at that time. He destroyed them all. Did tawbah nusu. He became amongst the saints, riwayat mentions. Anything that he touched became zaqimatin, gained value. How do I make that understand to the children? For example, you buy a baseball for $20, but you get one of the Braves to sign it. Right? Now it has value. It went from being $20 to $200 because someone famous signed it. This man, Bishr Hafi, became a saint that anything that he touched became zaqimatin, valuable. And that was something that was given to him just because he did tawbah and he became the abd of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's servitude that had to be included. So Imam said what? If you recite Quran, what happens to your houses? They become taksuru barakatuh. Barakat increase. Ta'zuru al malaika. Malaika come down. You worried about the house of Janab Sayyidah, the malaika come down to it? Yeah, they were regularly coming down to it. But if you want malaika to come to your house, you can start doing this. And if you don't want, at least you want to keep the shayateen away from it, recite this Quran in your house. Then Imam mentioned the opposite of it. He said, Innal bayt alladhi la yuqra'u fihi al-Quran wa la yuzkaru Allahu azza wa jalla fihi, house in which Quran is not recited and Allah is not remembered, taqillu barakatuhu. Barakat decrease. Have you ever heard someone says, barakat hi nahi rahi kisi cheez mein? Barakatein khatam ho gayi hain. Well, there is something related to that. Imam says, house in which Quran is not recited, taqillu barakatuhu. Barakat decrease. Tahduruhu shayateen. Shayateen gain access to such houses. Wa tahjuruhu al-malaika. And malaika stay far, far away from such houses. Wo uske qareeb bhi nahi bhadakte. Imam then added something to the house in which Quran is recited. Inshallah, you can take this home and implement that tonight. Imam said, not only house in which Quran is recited is where the barakat increase, the blessings are doubled and tripled and quadrupled. Malaika come down to it. He said, تُضِيءُ لِأَهْلِ السَّمَاءِ كَمَا تُضِيءُ الْكَوَاكِبِ لِأَهْلِ الْأَرْضِ. These houses shine for the inhabitants of the heaven the way stars shine for the inhabitants of the earth. At night when you look up on the sky and you see these stars shining, the inhabitants of the heaven, when they look down onto the earth, there are certain houses that are illuminated. These are the houses in which what? Quran is shining. Now this is the barakat of this Quran. Salawat bheji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I've taken too much of your time. Inshallah, I'll conclude. This is where we understand how Imam ﷺ, when he introduced one of his friends to us, he said, Lillahi darruka ya Habib, laqad kunta fadilan takhtimul Quran fi laylatin wahida. How, lucky you are, O Habib, that you are sahib-e fazl, that you used to finish Quran every night. This is Habib ibn Mazahir. This is one of the companions of Imam Hussein. Some mention that he was the Sahabi of Rasul. Some mention that he was a Tabi'i and that he took part in the battles alongside with Amir al-Mu'mineen. And of course, a very close friend of Imam Hussein. There's a story that is mentioned by Rushayd when he says that some people in Kufa, they saw Habib and Misam Tammar meet. When they met one another, they spoke in secret language. Guftugu jo hai wo ramzi thi. Habib said to Misam that I see a man who has no hair in front and who will be hanged by a tree. And then Misam responded by saying, I see a man in front of me whose beard will be colored with his own blood and who will be killed along with Sayyid al-Shuhada. Well, Habib had said, I see a man who was sacrificed for the love of Ali. Misam said, I see a man who will sacrifice for the love of Hussein. They recognize each other. Habib is a long, old friend of Imam Hussein. Same age as Imam pretty much. Grew up together as mentioned sometimes. And therefore, he's amongst those individuals that when Imam mentions him as a faqih. And Imam mentions him as someone who used to finish Quran in one night. Sayyid al-Shuhada, in this journey of his, I was asked to say a few words in English for Masai before switching over to Urdu. Sayyid al-Shuhada, in his journey, there are some people that he invited. He wrote letters asking them to come and join us in this battle. Just imagine these people and their maqam, that Imam Hussein is calling upon them. Amongst them is Zuhair ibn Qayn. Zuhair was avoiding Imam all this long, until Imam sent his messenger to Zuhair, says that Imam Hussein wants to see you. Zuhair said, tell him I don't want to see him. The wife of Zuhair said, at least go see what Hussein has to offer. If you don't want to listen to him, that's okay, but at least go listen to him. Listen to what he has to say. Zuhair comes, listens to what Imam has to say, goes back, and he says to his wife, you are free to go wherever you want to. Everything that I have, I bequeath to you. I'm going to stay here and give sacrifice with Hussein. She said, a moment ago, you didn't want to go see Hussein. What did he make you see that now you want to leave me and everything that you possess and you want to give sacrifice? Amongst them are those unfortunate people. Ubaidullah ibn Hurra Juhfi. That Imam approaches him, tells him, this is the man who has camped outside of Kufa. Approaches him, tells him, come and join us. He said, Maula, keep me out of this internal conflict, this civil war, where both sides are Muslimin fighting. You can take my sword, you can take my zira, you can take my horse, and keep me out of it. Imam recited the ayat of Quran. We do not take help from those who are weak. And Imam said, I wasn't asking for your help. I was giving you salvation. मैं तुम्हारी मदद का नियाज़मंद नहीं हूँ, बल्कि मैं तुम्हारी मदद कर रहा था. अगर तुम मेरे साथ आ जाते तो तुम्हारी जन्नत. और इमाम ने कहा, अच्छा अगर नहीं आना चाहते मत आओ. लेकिन जब हल मिन नासिरिन यंसुरुना की सदा बुलंद हो ना, तो इतने दूर चले जाना कि तुम्हें ये आवाज़ ना आए. क्योंकि इस आवाज़ पे अगर लब्बैक नहीं कहा ना, तो फिर تمہارا حساب کتاب بڑا سخت ہوگا. ایسے ہی ایک خط امام نے حبیب ابن مظاہر کو لکھا. حبیب کو وہ خط پہنچتا ہے. حبیب کوفے کے بازار میں تھے. مسلم ابن اوسجہ سے ملاقات ہوئی. پوچھا یہ سارے گھوڑے اور یہ ساری جنگی تیاریاں کیا ہو رہا ہے؟ کہا کوفے والوں نے عہد کر لیا ہے امام حسین کو شہید کرنے کا. حبیب گئے تھے رنگ لینے کے لیے اپنی داڑھی کی. کہتے ہیں انہوں نے اس رنگ کو وہیں پھینکا. کہا اب یہ داڑھی صرف اور صرف میرے خون سے رنگی جائے گی. گھر آ جاتے ہیں. اتنے میں دق الباب ہوا. آپ نے واقعات سنے ہوئے ہیں, دوہرا رہا ہوں تبرکن. قاصد حسین ہے. خط کو امام کو چوما, اس کے متن کو پڑھا. زوجہ حبیب موجود ہیں, کھانا کھا رہے تھے. پوچھا کیا لکھا ہے حسین نے؟ کہا حسین نے طلب کیا ہے کربلا میں. کہا کیا ارادہ ہے حسین؟ کہا سوچتا ہوں اگر میں چلا گیا تو تم بیوہ ہو جاؤ گی, میں چلا گیا تو تمہارے بچے یتیم ہو جائیں گے. امتحان لے رہے تھے زوجہ کا. زوجہ نے کہا کہ اے حبیب وائے ہو تم پہ, تم کو پریشانی ہے کہ تمہارے مر جانے سے, تمہارے چلے جانے سے تمہارے بیوی بچے, تمہاری بیوی بیوہ اور تمہارے بچے یتیم ہو جائیں گے. ادھر حسین ابن علی کے بچوں کا خیال نہیں ہے تمہیں؟ اے حبیب اگر تم نہیں جانا چاہتے تو مت جاؤ, میں حسین کی نصرت کے لیے جاؤں گی. یہ سننا تھا. حبیب سمجھ گئے. اللہ اکبر کا نعرہ لگایا. کہا نہیں میں صرف تیرا امتحان لے رہا تھا اور تو امتحان میں پوری اتری ہے. میں کیسے ہو سکتا ہے حسین مجھے بلائیں اور میں نہ جاؤں؟ اجرکم اللہ. یہ دل ہے حبیب کا. ادھر امام نے بلایا, ادھر حبیب نے لبیک کہا. حبیب نے جاتے ہوئے نکلتے ہیں اپنے غلام کو کہا فلاں جگہ پہ مجھے ملنا. اتنی آسانی سے کوفہ چھوڑ نہیں سکتے تھے, ہر جگہ ناکہ بندی تھی. حبیب ایک مقام پہ پہنچنے کے لیے اپنے غلام کو پہلے سے بھیج دیا تھا گھوڑے کے ساتھ, لیکن جب وہاں پہنچنے میں دیر ہو گئی نا تو ایک دفعہ کیا دیکھا حبیب نے کہ پہنچتے ہی آواز آ رہی ہے. غلام گھوڑے سے کہہ رہا ہے اگر میرے آقا آج نہ آئے نا تو کوئی مسئلہ نہیں ہے, میں تجھ پہ سوار ہو کے جاؤں گا اور حسین کی نصرت کے لیے پہنچوں گا. حبیب کی آنکھوں میں آنسو آ گئے. کیا وقت آیا ہے شہزادے پہ, کیا وقت ہے حسین ابن علی پہ کہ غلام زادے بھی اس طریقے سے گفتگو کر رہے ہیں. حبیب پہنچتے ہیں, گھوڑے پہ سوار ہوتے ہیں, کربلا کا رخ کرتے ہیں. ابھی دور سے کسی کے آنے کی امید تھی, پہنچنے والے کی امید تھی. امام نے ایک علم سائیڈ میں رکھا ہوا تھا. لوگ پوچھتے تھے یہ علم کس کے لیے ہے؟ کہا اس علم کو اٹھانے والا آنے والا ہے. دیکھا دور سے کوئی گھڑ سوار آ رہا ہے. امام نے خیر مقدم کیا. حبیب کربلا پہنچے. امام کے دیرینہ ساتھی ہیں. حبیب کے آتے ہی اس کربلا کے میدان میں جہاں خیمے بنے لگے ہوئے تھے, ان خیموں میں جہاں اداسی تھی, جہاں غمگینی تھی, ایک دفعہ خوشی کی لہر دوڑ جاتی ہے. ارے کس طرح کی خوشی! حبیب اپنے مظاہر آئے ہیں, حسین کے دوست آئے ہیں. یہاں تک کہ فضہ نے جب خبر پہنچائی, ایک دفعہ جناب زینب کو یہ خبر ملی. زینب نے جواباً بھیجا اے فضہ جاؤ سلام کہو حبیب کو. اجرکم اللہ. خدا کسی غم میں نہ رلائے سوائے غم آل محمد کے. فضہ نے آ کے حبیب کو سلام کیا. اے حبیب زینب نے بھی سلام بھیجا ہے. حبیب نے زمین پہ گرایا, اپنے آپ کو خاک اچھالی. کہا یہ وقت آ گیا ہے شہزادیاں ہم پہ سلام بھیجے. اجرکم اللہ. خدا کسی غم میں نہ رلائے. بس وہ وقت آتا ہے حبیب نے مقتل کا رخ کرنا چاہا. ارے مقتل میں پہنچتے ہیں. حبیب نے اپنی شجاعت کے جوہر دکھائے. 66 کی کچھ روایات میں اور زیادہ کو واصل جہنم کیا, لیکن ایک دشمن نے, ایک لعین نے چھپ کے آیا حبیب پہ ایسا حملہ کیا کہ ڈگمگائے اور زمین پہ آ گرے. ابھی زمین پہ گرے تھے کہ ایک دفعہ مولا کو آخری سلام کیا. امام پہنچے حبیب کے پاس. حبیب سے امام کی دوستی تھی. امام نے گفتگو کی, حبیب کا شکریہ ادا کیا. حبیب تم ہمارے اس مشکل وقت میں کام آئے, اللہ تمہیں سرخرو کرے. میں کہوں گا یہ مولا غریب امام صبح سے لے کے شام تک, صبح سے لے کے زور عصر تک ایک ایک لاشے کو اٹھاتا تھا, لیکن جب جاتے تھے لاشے پہ تو حبیب ساتھ ہوتے تھے. لیکن اب حبیب بھی چلے گئے, امام اکیلے ہی جا رہے ہوں گے. جب بنو ہاشم کے لاشوں کو اٹھایا ہوگا ہوگا. لیکن عجب نہیں ہے جو صبح سے لے کے زور تک لاشوں کو اٹھاتا رہا, جب وہ خود زمین پہ گرا تو کوئی اس کی لاشوں کو اٹھانے والا نہیں. ماتم حسین.